I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. Welcome to the April 22nd Halfmoon Township Board of Supervisors meeting. I'm going to go ahead and have us stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We're going to go ahead with the opening announcements, and I'll turn that over to Denise.
Welcome back, everyone.
Yes.
This is great. We're going to be continuing doing hybrid meetings from now on, unless, like Bob had mentioned just earlier, unless anything changes with the governor's office. Additionally, this meeting is being recorded live and is available on CNET, or if you've signed up and registered virtually, you'll get an email after the meeting. We're still asking for people to sign up for email notices. Even if you've signed up in the past, we've switched email providers at the end of last year, so we lost that listserv. Please sign up on our website. Also, if you're interested in a vacancy, please contact us. We are looking right now, especially for a Planning Commission recording secretary. And as a reminder, Riff Raff Days have been scheduled for May 21st from 8 to 4 and the 22nd from 8 until 3.
Lovely. Just quickly, the secretary does get paid?
That is yes, that secretary will get paid on a per meeting basis.
Okay. Just wanted to throw that out there as well.
How much can we pay?
We pay $50.
$50. So if anyone is interested in being a secretary, there you go. Okay, so this is the opportunity now for citizen comments. So we have our agenda listed. If there's any items that anyone has a comment on that are not on the agenda already for this evening, speak now.
I have one, if
Sure.
I may.
Okay.
This is Ronald Cervello.
Mm-hmm.
It's not an agenda item. I've noticed for quite some time the speed of vehicles, not 550, but like Smith Road and other side roads. And more specifically, I'm finding that people are driving way over the speed limit. I mean, it's pretty obvious. But I'm noticing that school buses are driving way over the speed limit too. And I've called the school district about this several times because of my concern. But like on Cornfield Lane, for example, they come flying down the road. It's a 25-mile-an-hour speed limit, and then they slam on the brakes as they get down to the bottom of the hill near Smith Road. I mean, you can hear their brakes squealing the whole way down. And the neighbors have also commented on it as well. I've actually asked the bus drivers to slow down in person. I've called the school district and talked to their director of transportation, and nothing seems to happen. Of course, there's different bus lines. So, there's Confer, there's Browns. I saw a bus today that had State College Area School District on it. So there's obviously several lines of buses. And my question is there anything the township can do that I can't as an individual do that might influence these people to slow down? I mean, at least obey the speed limits that are already established.
So two things, because the buses might be a different story, but from the roadside, we had borrowed or leased or rented one of those speed signs on particular roads. So if there was a road of particular care that we wanted to take a look at, like Smith Road, we've done it on Smith Road in the past. I think it's been many years now, where there's a box.
Speaking of the radar box.
Yeah, the radar box that's on a pole, and it will track the speed and the time of day and things like that, which provides some data for us to make some decisions on. So we did do that before. And Denise, I know we found the old box that we had. Can you tell the status of that?
So we needed to figure out a way to hook it up to the computers. I had to order a special cable. We got it, and I was able to get some software downloaded, but it may not be feasible to use the box. It's very
It's
old.
Yeah.
And it may not have the same collection capabilities. So we did, I believe, put in the budget this year some money to rent one that's more up to date. I'm pretty sure we can't get that old one
To work.
up and
yeah.
running. But we can look at some roads that would be of concern.
Yeah. So Ron, anytime we had like complaints or notices from residents in the past, that's what we would typically do first, is to put up the box to collect some data on the speed and the time of day to see, then kind of make decisions on what to do from that point. So that's one of the steps that we can take from the individual resident car standpoint. I don't know.
If I see them continue to do this, I'm going to call the state police.
You can also
And
definitely
I'm
do
just going
that.
to file a complaint with them.
Yes.
And we have talked to the state police too, and that was one of the reasons we wanted to collect the data so we could give them more information on when specifically to target.
Yeah.
Can I?
Yeah, I think also, I think we need to consider, at least I think we need to consider the speed limits on these side streets, including Smith Road, that whether they should really be 35 or should they be even lower. Because, I mean, people come flying down that road. I don't even know how they they managed the curves on some of the curves on Smith Road. I don't know how and there have been accidents. There have been rollovers.
Ron,
on Smith Road.
I can tell you that this is Bob. I can tell you that I share your concerns with the speeds throughout the township. We've had several conversations with the state police, the barracks chiefs over the years. This last year, I guess it was in January, we last saw the station chief. We once again requested that there be a more visible presence of the state police in the problem areas like 550 through the village and Smith Road and Marengo Road. And I will say that I've been impressed. In the last 4-ish months, I've seen a state police, a trooper car or SUV, either parked or rolling through Stormstown more than I have in the previous 12 years of living in this township. So they are here, and there is an effort being made to at least make a presence. Trouble with lowering speed limits is if they're already exceeding the speed limit by 20 miles an hour now, if you drop the speed limit, now they're just going to be exceeding by 30 because they obviously don't care.
Enforcement is the
Exactly.
issue, and that's where we need the state police to help us, because obviously we don't have our own police force to do that. So as Patty said, I think if you have a recommendation on the road, we can definitely rent or get the box to get some data. Then when we provide that to the state police, they know what time of day, like if the majority of the speeding is happening at a certain time, they can better utilize their resources to have somebody posted during the times when the speeding is happening, so they can catch it.
I'll tell you, box or no box, if you notice, say at 4 o'clock, there's a whole bunch of cars flying through, and you call the state police barracks and say, hey, usually at 4 p.m. we got a problem here,
Yeah,
they'll send somebody down.
yeah.
Because they asked us the last,
Wait all day.
yeah, well, last time they were here, they said, is there a particular time that there's a trouble spot?
Right.
Or there are particular locations? And, I don't live on Smith Road, so I don't notice, I'm driving 550. I know everybody speeds on 550.
Yeah.
But, when you're out in the country, it probably doesn't matter that much. But when you're going through Stormstown, it matters a lot. If you're going up Cornfield Lane, it matters a lot.
Yeah.
So if you notice anything particular or a particular vehicle that's causing a problem, and you can get identification on that vehicle, call them. I know they would be willing to help.
Yeah, they do.
And I will say, if I may, that recently one of the troopers, the one that we filed the complaint with the ice rink, came by and just provided an update, and that he had a couple of leads but wasn't able to follow through on them for certain reasons. And while we had that conversation, I keep track of the complaints on speeding and what roads that they're on. And the majority of the complaints received were along 550, and it was during the rush hour time frame. So I asked him to, when he's not, I would say, triaging calls, and he has some spare time, to come and please do more speed enforcement along 550 during those times. And that's actually probably why you've seen a lot.
Coming and going.
So they are. I do keep track of those, Ron, and we do have. When the troopers are able to, they are coming out and doing some speed enforcement.
Okay.
Also,
Okay.
Ron,
I had one other question.
Ron, I'm
It's
sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, sorry.
One last thing on that. You had concern about the school buses speeding. Do me a favor, if you
That's
can,
my more specific and
yeah,
bigger
if you
concern.
could take down bus numbers
Yes.
and maybe where the stop, the area where it's happening is, maybe we can forward information along. We don't have any enforcement mechanism there either, but we can at least contact the appropriate people and say, hey, listen, can you have a talk with your bus drivers? Because then we can also follow up with them. And so if they're getting
right.
it from more than one person, maybe they'll have a little bit more gumption to act.
Right. One other question, and it's an agenda item, but I don't want to discuss it. I just wanted for clarification. There's a discussion on the agenda of an auditor, selection of auditor or appointment of auditor. Are you talking about the CPA firm?
Yes. Yes.
Because I wasn't sure what that meant, because I'm the chair of the auditors and I thought maybe somebody quit.
No, not the township auditors. This is the contracted auditor that we use.
Are you going to be looking at multiple firms or?
Whoever submits an RFP, yes.
Okay,
It's all
all right.
depend- yep.
That's my question.
Yep.
I wasn't sure if we were talking about our auditors or
No.
the CPA firm. So.
CPA firms, yep. Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Are there any other public comments? Okay, seeing none, we'll move along to the approval of tonight's agenda. So we have the agenda as is. I don't remember, I didn't print out the latest one, I apologize. But we will have an executive session at the end. So just wanted to add that at the very end. Does anyone have anything they want to add or remove from tonight's agenda?
Reason for the executive session?
It will be a litigation issue.
Okay.
With no decisions to
Yeah,
be
no
made.
decisions
So
will be
we
made.
will adjourn
Information.
to that.
Yep.
And then I asked that we table the developers agreement discussion. I need to go over some of those revisions with Jeff before presenting it.
Okay. And that's not on the agenda though, is it?
It is, it's
Is it? Where is
number
it? Oh, there it is.
6J.
6I, there we go. So we'll table that. So adding the executive session and tabling 6I, which is the discussion on the developers agreement.
I move that we approve the agenda.
Thank you.
I'll
Is there a
second.
second? Thank you, Bob. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We need Patty and Chuck.
Aye. Aye.
Thank you.
Sorry, I had to switch to phone. I was having too much trouble with my computer audio.
Okay, thanks,
I'm
Patty.
gonna rename you then, Patty. That's you with the 8289.
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, the agenda passes. There are no subdivision plans to review. We'll move to the approval of the minutes from the March 25th meeting.
I move that we approve the minutes from March 25th, 2021.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Dave. Is there any corrections, additions? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Thanks, Patty.
Chuck?
Or do we lose them?
I don't know. Is he on
I'm sorry, I was on the phone. I didn't know what, I wasn't paying
there?
attention.
That's okay, Chuck. We're approving the minutes from the last meeting. Okay.
Okay, I'm with you. I approve.
Thank you. All right. The minutes pass. Next up is the consent agenda. So we have some bills that were paid. If anyone has anything specific to pull out for discussion on that, then we can do that and have a motion for each individual item. If not, we can
I just
move.
have one question for our manager. The Open Space Preservation Fund, the amount of $50, what is that?
Recording secretary.
Okay. All right, I'm cool with it. I
I
move we
move that
approve
we
it.
approve the consent agenda. Sorry,
Okay.
Dave, I thought you were
Either
done.
way, I second it.
Bob moved, Dave seconds. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right.
Aye.
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 Thank you. All right, moving right along. Old business, we still have the property maintenance code on old business and it will remain there for a little while, right?
Yes, there's an update that's occurring on the code in general, and so what if we do it this year, we would do a hearing and pay for the advertisement and pay for, of course, Jeff's review and everything along those lines. When we would just have to, after the new code gets adopted, we would have
it
to go
again.
back and
Okay.
basically do it again. So we're saving a little money.
And the
Yeah,
new,
and I'm on board with that, but I do think we still need to have further discussions regarding the matter because it has some really good points to it that could help us in certain situations.
Yep.
So.
all right. All right, so we have a number of new business items. The first being a report by Mauer Dussel, and I know I don't say that right, I don't think, of the 2020 real estate tax audit and our 2020 municipal annual audit. So this is an item that we have every year, and we get a report from our auditors. So we will sit back and
Yes, so Dustin should be able to share screen, which he is.
And just for the record, it's Mardissel CPAs. Trust me, nobody pronounces that correctly. So I'm Dustin Starr. I'm a senior manager with Mardissel. We are the independent accountants that performed the audit over Halfmoon Township for 2021. And I have a slideshow to go over a high-level overview of the financial statements. We completed our audit and issued the audit opinion mid-March. Your statutory requirement for filing the PADCED form was March 31st. So that's all been filed timely and has been completed at this point. So the reports issued, the DCED annual audit and financial report, including the independent auditor's report, the communication of those charged with governance letter. So this is an internal letter that is issued to describe what our responsibilities are as the independent auditors and what the responsibilities of management are. And then lastly, we issued a management letter as well too. Towards the end of the presentation, we'll discuss the real estate tax audit as well. So first, the first deliverable of the communication of those charged with governance. Our responsibility under generally accepted accounting standards is to provide that independent auditor's report and to provide an opinion on whether or not those financial statements are materially accurate. Our audit does sample transactions and we perform procedures. We do not look at 100% of the transactions that happen throughout the year. And our opinion is driven towards the financial amounts. We do gain an understanding of internal controls. And if we come across deficiencies, we're required to report that back to management. But the goal of our audit is not to focus on internal controls, but to rather give an opinion on whether or not those financial statements and those amounts that are found in those financial statements are materially accurate, and we're providing reasonable assurance on those. The plan, scope, and timing of our audit does hinge around how we feel the internal controls are implemented and the processes found within the township. So depending on how those internal controls are performing, the timing and scope of our audit could possibly change, and those procedures are tailored to mitigate any of those risks that we would find in gaining understanding of those internal controls. Significant accounting policies during the year. There were no new adopted accounting policies. There were no significant estimates found within the financial statements. Since you are issuing the PADCED form, that form is allowed to be submitted with no footnote disclosures. We had no difficulties encountered in performing our audit. There were no uncorrected misstatements. It's a very important item to mention because the information that you are reviewing on a monthly basis is accurate. We make very little audit adjustments at year end. Most of them are for reporting only purposes and just reclassifications of small amounts, and nothing that was materially misstated during the course of our procedures was identified. We had no disagreements with management. Upon the completion of the audit, we did obtain management representations, which is essentially a letter that provides to us that all the information that we requested, the inquiries that we made, that information was received. It was complete and it was accurate. Nothing was withheld from us in performing our procedures. We're not aware of any consultants with other independent accountants, and we had no issues that were discussed that were contingent upon retention as us as the independent auditors. Any questions on the communication of those charged with governance letter?
Not for me. No, I'm seeing shaking heads no. Go ahead.
Okay, so moving on to the summary of the results, the independent auditor's report. The report is issued on a regulatory basis, which that means is the financial statement that's being submitted is designed by the PADCED, and we provided an unmodified audit opinion on that regulatory basis, which means we did not have to modify any sections of the standard independent auditor's report. There were no areas that we were unable to provide an opinion or that there were any issues that we came across in order to provide that opinion that the financial statements were materially accurate. So this is a clean audited opinion for 2020. So here's some quick summary highlights as of December 31st, 2020. Pie graph here showing fund balances as of year end. Since you do report on the cash basis of accounting, your fund balances also equal the cash reserves at year end. They're the same amounts. So you can see here the largest reserve as of year end is the general fund with $625,000. The open space fund of $524,000, and then your special revenue liquid fuels fund of approximately $230,000. The capital projects fund of approximately $71,000 at year end, and then the fire fund, which is a new fund of $17,000 as of year end. So some changes in fund balance from one year to the next. So starting off last year, fund balances rolling them forward to December 31st, 2020. The fund categories that you have reported for 2020 is your general fund, your special revenue funds, which make up the open space fund, the liquid fuels fund, and the fire fund, and then you have a capital fund as well too. So as of year end, your general fund increased approximately $75,000. The sum of all the special revenue funds increased approximately $61,000, and then the capital fund decreased approximately $93,000 as of year end. And just to point out some variance analysis from one year to the next, the general fund, the revenues and expenditures, the operating revenues and expenditures did remain relatively consistent from one year to the next. There were some additional grants that were offset with expenditures for some projects. But really the change in your fund balance from last year to this year is there were some significant transfers from the general fund to the capital fund in 2019 for the park project. That did not happen in 2021. So you're kind of saying a boost in those reserves as of 2020. The special revenue kind of split 50-50 between the open space fund and the liquid fuels fund, where revenues were in excess of those expenditures. And then in the capital fund, a decrease in that fund balance due to a large equipment purchase, as well as now debt service that you're paying back the loan for the parks project that you had in the prior year. So that's a quick summary of the overall changes in your fund balance from 2019 to 2020. Any questions on that summary?
We're saying no here. Patty or Chuck, speak up if you have any questions along the way. Go ahead, Dustin.
Okay, so lastly, I'm going to move on to the management letter. So as I mentioned in the communication of those charged with governance letter, if we would come across any deficiencies in internal controls, we would be required to report that in a separately issued letter. We gain our understanding. We don't provide an opinion on it, but it would be our duty to report that back if we found any gaps in internal controls. So there was a big overhaul of the internal control system from last year to 2020, and major strides had been made during 2020 to strengthen internal controls. And in the past, we reported deficiencies over segregation of duties, and really what it came down to was review of information that was done. So review of reconciliations, review of check registers and payroll registers and so forth. For 2020, we did not identify anything that we considered to be a deficiency. We just had a few items on there that are some best practices, some food for thought, how to better improve the strides that were made for 2020. And these items are not considered to be deficiencies, but they are just some additional improvements that could be made. So again, it was very good to see the strides that were made from 2019 to 2020 to segregate duties to the best of your abilities. There's a small accounting and a small staff size at the township, but you got to the point where you could significantly improve and segregate to the duties and have things better segregated, where an individual might perform a task, another person might record within the financial statements, and then a third person reconcile or review what had been done. So to talk about the current year management letter comments, opening of bank statements. So things have, as I mentioned, were improved and segregated around the whole bank reconciliation process. But one of the best practices that we usually recommend to all of our clients is that a person that is independent of the entire reconciliation process and the actual recording of the transactions of the bank statements, open up that bank statement and look for anything unusual. The idea behind this is if you have a person that has the ability to record the transactions or perform the reconciliation, they might manipulate things in order for it to agree to the ledger. So if you have someone that's completely independent of the process, open those bank statements first, because that's the document that came directly from the bank. That document isn't going to lie at all. So if you look through that document, look at the canceled check images, make sure everything looks proper. If there's anything that looks unusual, identify those items, look into it, and have that person sign off on that bank statement that they performed that procedure. And there was nothing during the course of our procedures that we came across anything that appeared to be unusual. This again is just a best practice and a way to even further improve the whole bank reconciliation and recording of transaction process. Policies and procedures, there's a list here of some
Just one
best
second.
practice.
Dustin, can you hear us a
sorry.
second? Sorry.
Yes.
So just a quick addition to that.
Sure.
We recently had, when we were discussing with the auditors about the bank statements, we used to receive all mail statements, and somewhere along the line, one of our banks switched us to electronic. So we to solve this issue, we went and asked them to go back to paper statements so that three of us there's somebody who's opening it, somebody who's reconciling it, somebody who's reviewing it, and then we give it to the board.
Awesome.
So that.
No, electronic statements are better for the environment.
Not better
But
for
segregation
controls,
of
though.
duties
Yes.
is more important.
One other recommendation that if you wanted to continue to have electronic statements, you could. However, typically those check images aren't always included on the electronic statement, but you might have the ability to still view the images online, but typically you have to click through each image to look at it. So if you do get the paper copy, you get probably 10, 12 images on one page. So it makes that process a lot more efficient. But if you really wanted to keep the electronic statements, you could, and still could be effective, just might not necessarily be as efficient navigating that through the web browser and looking at all the images and so forth. But that's another way to get around if, let's say it's impractical for someone to open the bank statement that is independent of the process. A way to do that would be look at the images online, because again, you're going to be looking at the actual images that cleared the bank. And there could be no manipulation of a paper document prior to it being received to the person who's reviewing it.
Excellent. Thank you.
Sorry. Policies and procedures. So here are some policies and procedures that were mentioned on the management letter that we consider to be best practices. I did want to point out and give kudos to Denise. We did have whistleblower on here as a policy to adopt. That already has been adopted, so I'll make sure that gets removed from the list. going forward. But these policies and procedures are kind of your best practice. And the idea behind these procedures is if you would have an individual who is new to the organization, or you have an individual who had always handled those types of transactions and are now terminated, and someone's then stepping in and taking over for them, these will help the person that is now performing those procedures be able to get up to speed a lot quicker. Lastly is information technology, very hot topic now, especially during COVID and everyone working from home and the constant use of Zoom and all of our other electronic needs, is the heightened awareness of phishing attacks, ransomware attacks. A lot of people first thought, well, if I don't process credit card payments or I don't have sensitive data, that I'm not a risk. That's really not the case anymore. The ransomware is a big thing where they steal your data, then you have to pay to get it back. So just continue to be aware that that's always a threat, regardless of what size of organization you are, whether you're a for-profit, nonprofit, government agency, that risk is out there. And if you feel that there's a need to possibly provide training to your employees, there is a number of products out there. It's a relatively cheap training that you can purchase. There's a slew of vendors out there that you can do some little webinars or so forth and kind of play it based off of what you think that your needs are. But that information is out there and can be extremely useful during these times where the hackers just don't want to let up, especially during these COVID times.
Dustin, I'm going to interrupt you there just a second too. So the procedures, the policies and procedures for the public is general account ledger maintenance, and we're working on that. If you now notice in your packets, when you sign checks, there's a general ledger report, so that's also getting signed off, and so it's also being documented and reviewed by 2 people. Then there's purchasing, we're working on that. Credit cards, which we had taken all the credit cards from everybody and we only have one, and everybody has to ask for it now, so why we don't have a policy, we've pulled that back. Fund balance is one, and then travel reimbursable expenses. And as far as the information technology issues go, Dustin, thank you for that lead in. At some point, I will be approaching the board asking for the State College Borough has given me some quotes on some things that we can do for that IT training. So we'll be coming back to you with that.
Okay, excellent. Okay.
Okay, and that is the conclusion of the township side of things. So I wanted to move on in just a quick summary of the real estate tax audit as well. So we also perform a audit over the tax collections as the tax collector of Halfmoon Township collects for the borough school district. We perform a cash basis audit as well, so on the same basis of accounting as the township, and we also provided an unmodified audit opinion as well. Quick overview, these are the collections that were made during the year through the district, township, and the county, as well as the payments that were made to those respective entities. And not on this slide, we had similar comments on the management letter for that as well too, with the review of the bank statements. So that is everything that I had tonight. Any other questions? Here's my contact information, as well as Jeff Kent. Jeff Kent couldn't make the meeting tonight, but he did. He is the engagement partner for both of the audits.
So I'll open it up now. Do any of the supervisors have any questions on the audit report?
How much better is it this year than last year?
Oh, the management letter and the internal control improvements is impressive. I mean, there was a complete overhaul. Even before, I think it was maybe Denise's first week, she had my contact information, and Jeff and I had stopped at the office and just kind of went over the internal controls and things that they could be approved upon. We mentioned the management letter from last year, and I'm pretty sure she went to work right away on improving those internal controls. So it's very refreshing to see that management letter taken seriously and actually have some good improvements made from one year to the next.
Thank you.
I just want to take the opportunity to give Denise and the rest of the staff a
Yes.
big pat on the back, because you guys have been doing a fantastic job for the last year, especially given the fact that we've had to deal with a pandemic. I mean, just the fact that you've gotten all this done and all these improvements to our policies and procedures alone in the space of 1 year is remarkable. But then throw in a pandemic, and I can't commend you enough.
Two pieces to that I have to say. Staff, again, I've said this from the
Yes.
beginning, amazing staff. They really, it's impossible to do this job without their support. It's great. And as far as, I've been saying Meyer Dussel, so I'm so sorry. I've been doing it wrong too.
All right, trust me. I think only the employees know how to say it correctly, so don't worry about it.
But this was fantastic. That first week that we sat down and I said, give it to me raw, tell me exactly what we need to do. I know you're not giving this is how you're supposed to do it, but there was, what are the best practices? How do we improve? Because as a small staff, we're never going to get to the point where we don't have that segregation of duties issue, but I want to make it so that it's the best it can be and the tightest it can be. And they were fantastic to work with. I have to say, I love audit, and this was the best. This was so much fun. So thank you, Dustin.
You're very welcome, and likewise, Denise. Great to work with you, and appreciate all of the help that we had during the course of the audit.
Have you ever had anyone tell you that it was fun?
No, I have not. I'm going to be straight up honest with you. I can't say. I have many people thank me for the fun that they had during the audit.
Yeah, Denise, if you think that's fun, you need to get out more.
Excellent. Well, I certainly appreciate the work. I'm glad it went relatively smoothly and that we don't have any deficiencies. That is very good to hear.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Patty or Chuck, just giving you an opportunity if you have any comments or questions.
Darcy. No, I'm very pleased. Everything looks great, and I know that Denise and staff have been working hard to tie up loose ends and to tighten up things, so their efforts have been reflected in this audit, and I appreciate that.
All right. Thank you, Dustin, for joining, and we'll move along to the next item then. So our next item is a review and a release of a request for proposal to an appointed auditor. So, Denise, can you explain the process of how we do this? Yes. Yep.
So, best practice is to put out an RFP or request for proposal for the CPA firm for the auditing services every 3 years, and then have a contract that we sign, and there's usually a nice little proposal that the prospective auditors give, and then we can do reviews on that. If you remember, when I came at early 2020, I had asked that we were actually supposed to go out to RFP in 2020 for that best practice, and I asked that we retain Meyer Dussel and expand and stay that contract for a year, because there were a couple of months in the beginning that was under one management, and then I wanted to just have that ease of transition since we had that institutional knowledge. This year, because now all those policies and procedures and all those items have been tightened up, I'd like to go out to RFP and put this and submit this to anybody who's interested in putting it out there for some accounting firms. And if Dustin's still on the call, of course, we're going to ask them to do the same thing. And then there'll be a scoring system, and the board will review. The timeline for this is it will be, we can release this as long as the board approves it right away. Proposals would be due June 30th. I would anticipate that we would do a selection at the August 26th meeting, and then we would do an actual appointment of that auditor as required by law on the October 28th meeting. And work could start fairly soon thereafter for preliminary numbers.
Awesome. So you wanted feedback on the proposal? If you had any questions, whatever.
It's quite extensive.
It is.
But it does list the scope of work. There's a scoring provision. We would ask that people, the contract terms, the fact that we would like it would for 1 year with options for 2021, 2022, and 2023's fiscal years.
Is that standard that somebody would sign just for 1 year at a time?
So larger municipalities might do 1 year.
Okay.
What I've seen in second-class townships is 3-year contracts seem to be pretty standard. And there's usually an increase year over year of a small percentage amount.
Right. Okay. I didn't have any question about the content of what was going to be included in it. I had a little bit of question about the submission process. Some of it says that electronic proposals are acceptable, but then I see something about the format. There was just a little bit of inconsistency in the description of is electronic allowed or not, and then the instructions were for like printed, and so many copies need to be provided. So I was a little confused. And they have to submit questions in writing, not via email. There were a couple little.
That is writing.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So not just a phone call. They
Oh,
need
okay.
to be documented.
I think the reason that I assumed not is because submitted in writing to Denise and it has an address.
Okay.
It doesn't have an email address.
That's
That's
at the very bottom, but.
Are you talking about in section?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, let me tell you what section. Section 3. Mhm. And so that's why I assumed it meant only in writing via mail.
Okay.
Because it doesn't say that, and it has the actual address and not an email address. But
So
that's
right
little
above it,
things.
it's that you can make these appointments and you can contact me at my email.
Ah, or by mail at the
right.
township address. I see now.
Oh, yeah, it's separate page.
I see now. Okay, thank you.
Page wrap.
Okay. Okay, let me see if I had any other comments. Hold on. There was on section 1, and I didn't know this was confusing to me. Underlined, it says, please verify receipt of proposal. What is that meant for?
That was meant for me.
Oh, okay. That's what I thought. And I was like, I don't think that's supposed to be in the proposal
No,
document.
that's meant
Okay.
for me.
Just wanted to make sure. Yep. And I think, let me see if I had any others. Does anyone else have any?
I do not.
Okay, I think that mine were just those couple little procedural things at the beginning, and I think that was it. Yep. And there was a typo. Hold on. Second paragraph at the top, after the first year, to renegotiate. It's the last word in that first sentence, or the first line there. After the first year, the township reserves the right to extend the agreement and to renegotiate. Just needs a space, that was it.
Probably the and or.
We can do that.
Oh, I see, yeah. I think that was it. Excellent. So, if there's no other, Chuck or Patty, do you have any questions or comments about the content of the RFP template? Okay, hearing none, then we need a motion to release the request for proposal.
I
Now,
move-
oh, I'm sorry.
I move that we release the request for proposal.
Okay, is there a second?
Second with,
I'll second.
Oh, Dave got it first.
second with the recommended changes.
Thank you, thank you. So there is a motion and a second to release the request for proposal with the adjustments that we mentioned. Is there any discussion? My only question was, what firms are you looking at? How do you
Way
choose?
back when we thought we were going to have to do it in 2020, we created a list of about 10 people,
Oh, awesome.
10 firms that are recommended from other municipalities, and so we'll be sending it out and also putting it on our website.
Lovely. Oh, perfect, okay. That was my only question. Is there any other discussion? All those in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Chuck?
Nope, okay.
Chuck is. Chuck?
We should have him do a thumbs up or something. We did get enough eyes if he's not available to give an eye. Okay, so that release for the request for proposal is approved, and you can go ahead and work on that. Beautiful. Next up is a presentation by Paul Takak from Spring Creek Watershed.
Yes, and Paul, you should
Is
be
he
able
there?
to screen share.
Great.
And Paul, did I pronounce your name correctly?
You absolutely did.
Yay.
I'm very impressed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
How you doing, Paul?
Not many people do, so that was perfect. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. Thank you all very much. Let me just share my screen here for a second. Okay, you all see that pretty picture?
Yes.
Great. First of all, thanks for the opportunity to speak with you this evening. As Denise mentioned, my name is Paul Takak, and I'm currently an elected council member in College Township, and I also serve as the vice chair of the Spring Creek Watershed Commission. Here this evening in the latter capacity. I'm also joined by another member of the commission, David Roberts. David was a member of the Phase 2 technical group and can answer more technical questions during the Q&A session that follows. So the goal of my presentation is to provide a brief history of the Spring Creek Watershed Commission, an update and synopsis of our recently completed Phase 2 report, and to briefly outline our future plans in order to gather your comments, your feedback, and we trust your support. Specifically, I'd like to share the vision for the development of a One Water plan for the Spring Creek Watershed. The One Water concept was originally developed and defined by the Water Resource Foundation as an integrated approach to managing finite water resources for long-term resilience and reliability in order to meet both community and ecosystem needs. The concept uses a collaborative approach in which municipalities work together in order to maximize benefits, reduce redundancy, and save money. The long-term benefits of such an approach include not only a reliable, high-quality water supply and a healthy, sustainable ecosystem, but also enhanced economic and recreational opportunities that benefit everyone in the watershed. What follows is a brief history of the Commission and its efforts to lay the foundation for just such a plan for the Spring Creek Watershed, why it is needed, who will benefit, and what is necessary in order to move forward and make that a reality. The Spring Creek Watershed covers approximately 175 square miles, a total population of over 130,000 people, and is highly developed along most of its length. The area is underlain by an enormous aquifer that provides the majority of the water supply, but ultimately all of the water comes from the sky. It's a finite resource. The Spring Creek Watershed Commission was founded in 1996 to help develop a vision and a plan for the watershed's future. The membership of the commission consists of the representatives of elected officials from 12 of the 14 municipalities in the watershed. The work is also actively supported by roughly 30 other stakeholders, such as the Clearwater Conservancy, Trout Unlimited, and other nonprofits and community organizations, as well as water and wastewater authorities, local businesses, and county, regional, and state agencies. The mission statement of the Spring Creek Watershed Commission can be summarized in 3 words: vision, leadership, and planning. Specifically, the founding mission was to establish a long-term consensus vision for the watershed and to take a leadership role in the development of a comprehensive, long-term watershed management plan to help guide future projects and programs in order to advance that vision on behalf of the member municipalities. In 2003, the Commission published a Phase 1 report to begin and help guide this development process, including a thorough analysis of the overall environment, including the impact of population growth and land development. This Phase 1 effort had 2 primary objectives. The first was to develop a comprehensive matrix of problems and challenges facing the watershed, as well as potential solutions in future areas of research. The second was to identify and organize available information on the Spring Creek watershed, particularly surface and groundwater, the water supply, and land use. In addition, the report also began the process of researching similar watershed reports and plans in order to help guide future efforts. Unfortunately, however, after this first report was completed, further progress stalled due to a lack of funds. Nearly 15 years later, the Watershed Commission began work on phase 2 of the Watershed Development Plan. Roughly $16,000 in funding to support this effort was provided by local municipalities, authorities, Penn State, nonprofits, and businesses. This funding allowed the hiring of a facilitator and provided administrative support. A work group was formed and developed additional background information. Several public forums and presentations were also held to gather input from the community. This effort highlighted several key issues. The first was that population growth and land development was continuing, if not accelerating. In addition, the lack of a comprehensive plan to identify and prioritize challenges, opportunities, and solutions greatly increased the risk that water resources might be insufficient to meet the future needs of our community and the ecosystem. This is, of course, complicated by the fact that dozens of entities are responsible for making decisions about water and land use. All of this clearly underscored the need for a more collaborative and cooperative approach. However, it also became abundantly clear that what is not needed is another bureaucratic or regulatory layer, but rather the development of robust partnerships between all of the stakeholders, including the public. The resulting Phase 2 report was approved by the Watershed Commission in December 2019 and is available on our website. We also have a very nice synopsis, which I will send, David and I will send to Denise for distribution afterwards as well. The key findings, however, are captured in a revised forward-looking vision statement. The vision for the Spring Creek watershed is integrative, collaborative management of water resources in an environmentally, economically, and socially beneficial manner. This vision emphasizes long-term resilience, reliability, and economic prosperity, as well as the importance of community and stakeholder involvement. But again, not more regulation or any effort to change local governance. Instead, improved communication and coordination will lead to significant benefits, including savings through the reduction of duplication of effort and improve both efficiency and effectiveness. Such cooperation can also be expected to help in securing outside funding and grants. The report emphasizes that in order to make all this happen, a Phase 3 planning effort to develop a comprehensive 50-year roadmap for water resource management in the Spring Creek watershed, a One Water plan, is what is needed. With a long-term One Water plan as the goal, what then are the next steps? Basically, there are two. The first is to gain consensus from a majority of the participating municipalities that the Commission should move forward with this effort. We hope this presentation, while brief, has sufficiently described the goals and benefits of such an undertaking. However, it's important to emphasize that such an endorsement does not require or imply any funding commitment. As stated in the founding Articles of Agreement, the ongoing financial support of any Commission project is strictly voluntary on the part of each municipality. Following approval, the Watershed Commission will appoint a Phase 3 work group to guide this effort. The Phase 3 work group will be tasked with the following: to prepare a preliminary project proposal and outline, to develop a realistic budget and begin to pursue funding. It's estimated that the initial budget may be in the range of $35,000 to $45,000, but as the project develops, this could increase significantly. It's expected, though, that most of this funding will be from outside agencies, authorities, and organizations, as well as any municipalities that are interested in contributing. As soon as feasible, the working group would also assist in contracting a project director and/or support staff. Other responsibilities will include researching other more recent One Water plans, as well as engaging local, regional, and statewide stakeholders and the public. They will also provide regular progress reports and presentations to both the Commission and the municipalities. Finally, the working group will supervise the production of a final Phase 3 One Water Plan report for use by the member municipalities. These efforts will, of course, be continuously monitored and will be transparent, open, and inclusive. Most importantly, they'll be collaborative rather than regulatory. In conclusion, a comprehensive One Water Plan for the Spring Creek watershed will provide a strategic long-term vision and framework to maintain economic and environmental prosperity and a high quality of life for our current and our future residents. Improved communication and collaboration is expected to lead not only to improved outcomes, but to considerable savings. But perhaps most importantly, it will help build a greater sense of community and confidence in our collective future. We ask you to support this effort. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Does anyone have any comments or questions for Paul?
And or David. I believe David is on the line as well. He may be more qualified to answer some of these than I am.
Okay. Anything from anyone? Any board members? No?
Yes. Oh, can the public have questions also?
Absolutely.
Okay, the public is my husband, Mark.
Okay.
Hello. This is Mark Hartle. I'm watching the meeting, this portion of the meeting on Zoom. Will the Phase 3 plan be strictly guidance? How will the roadmap direct the best use of water?
So what will it, what will it look like? A One Water Plan. Am I correct? Is that the question?
Yeah. Yes, I heard what the goals were and so forth, but how will the plan actually have legs and function?
Sure. I'll take a crack at it, and then I'm going to turn it over to David for some more particulars. But really what it is a planning document that everyone agrees the consensus goals are, and it will allow us to identify the best management practices and the opportunities to improve across municipalities so that we improve the watershed as a whole. Because right now it's all sort of done piecemeal, but the idea of a One Water Plan is to kind of bring all of those resources together to leverage, scale and efficiency. So David, I don't know, would you like to say a little bit more about the effects or how a One Water Plan would actually be implemented?
Yes. Hello, Paul, and thank you. I think you did a great job. I don't know how much more I can add, but One Water Plans are something that have really taken hold across the globe as we all start realizing how limited of a resource that water can possibly be, or even an excess resource, where climate change is having impacts, where there's extreme weather events. And we already had a couple $1 million worth of infrastructure damage several years ago from a 7 inches of rain that fell in about an hour and a half. So these are sorts of impacts that can be looked at and addressed with One Water Plans, where we are really implementing a lot of best management practices. So Paul is exactly right. This is kind of a model where these best management practices using science-based data, data that's accumulated and measured on a regular basis. And Spring Creek is fortunate to have a huge database. And there are a number of different agencies that have been involved with this, not only Clearwater as a local, organization for helping put in riparian buffers and so forth and land conservation, but the Susquehanna River Basin Commission, DEP, certainly, Fish and Boat, and other volunteer groups like Trout Unlimited and the Sierra Club are all very interested in this. And so it's a collaborative effort is what I'm really trying to say here, that it's working together to accomplish these objectives. And so there's not necessarily one water plan that fits all. And so we have to look at the information we have, the needs we have, and the challenges we face very carefully, and then address that with a working plan to go forward, where we have collaboration and so forth. So that may lead at some point to further ordinances or zoning. I mean, land and water intersect in a very dramatic way. And so, as Paul said, all our water comes from the sky, meaning that we have no river here that runs through us. We are our water source. Our land is our water source. And so our land use is very much connected to our waters here. And so this brings a one water plan integrates all of these things hydrologically, geologically, and socially, economically, infrastructure-wise. It's a big undertaking, but the benefits are very much desired. So
thank you, David and Paul. So basically, to answer Mark's question, you said it a couple times, I think, but it's a consensus document, which is management best practices. So it's like a guiding document. I'm going to possibly equate it to our Center Region Comprehensive Plan, which is a consensus document on how we want to see planning and things moving forward. That's not necessarily a regulatory or an enforcement document, but it's a guidance document for how planning is to help moving forward. So it sounds like this might be similar to that, maybe?
It is. It sort of bridges the responsibilities at the municipality level and the efforts at a larger level. You know, the county is putting together water plans, the Susquehanna River Basin, the state. This is sort of that bridging document so that we could collaborate together and potentially leverage our individual efforts in a much more comprehensive way. For example, recently the report about all the microplastics in the threatened streams across the county. We might be able to secure grant funding, for example, through a Spring Creek Watershed Commission that would tie to a specific goal that all the municipalities say is important. Wouldn't necessarily be the responsibility of the municipality, but we would be able to tackle it together in a way that we wouldn't be able to do otherwise, more in a coordinated way, like the regional planning guide.
Excellent, thank you. Are there any other comments or questions?
Paul, can you clarify for me what you mean by the municipalities can work with the grant angle?
Sure.
Would that be something where the municipalities would have to apply for the grants and then we would forward those funds once acquired to the Spring Creek Watershed Commission, or how would that work?
It would actually work through the authority of the commission.
Okay.
That is through the Articles of Agreement. The municipalities sponsor the watershed commitment to act on their behalf.
Gotcha.
In this realm. So by authorizing us to move forward to create this phase 3 working group, the member municipalities would basically give us the authority to proceed. And you know, there's membership from all of the municipalities. There's votes along the way. We're just looking for the go-ahead, in a sense, to start work on building out the plan so that we can come back with a more detailed plan, and more importantly, go out and start to seek funding from other outside sources. Yeah. By the way, I will mention that we've presented to the Benner Township Water Authority. This is a fairly new thing. They unanimously approved a resolution in support of this. Several others have seen it and are working through that process as well. So we're we're pretty excited that we have some momentum. It was a little bit stalled by the pandemic, to be quite honest with you, but we're getting it started again. So we're looking forward to getting down to work.
Does how much involvement does UAJA have? Am I correct that they have their how do I want to call it? Their purified wastewater gets put back into Spring Creek at some place
The
upstream?
beneficial reuse
Yes.
water?
Yes.
Yeah. They're not a member of the commission, but they're certainly one of the agencies that has a great interest
Yes.
in what we're doing and is a supporting agency for sure.
Okay,
But the commission itself is made up only of the 12 municipalities that I mentioned.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments? Paul and David, thank you very much for the presentation.
Thank you for the opportunity. And if we can answer any questions down the line, please do let us know.
We will. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks, Dave.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Next up on the agenda is another report and presentation from SCLO Library. Is Sharon given the quarterly report for us?
Yes.
Yeah,
Hi, Sharon.
yeah, I'm right here. So first I wanted to apologize. I was supposed to be at last month's meeting, but I had a death in the family, and I thought I had notified everyone that I had to, and obviously I did not. So, but first, I'll start with some news that pertains to all patrons of SCLO Library. The staff, volunteers, and trustees of SCLO are now turning toward everything possible to take the library into its next phase, which includes a step-by-step building reopening plan that keeps safety the top priority. The library is going to continue to work closely with health and government officials to monitor COVID-19 community indicators and make informed decisions. They will announce specifics shortly about a phased reopening in early May, beginning with lobby reserve pickups. Following a successful phase 1 launch, they will move to phase 2 to include in-person browsing, which is just will be in time for summer reading. So that will be really nice. And they would like, the residents to know and be assured that they are eager to get back to the library, that everyone knows, and they would like to thank you for your patience, input, trust, and support for the library. Now, for specifics to Halfmoon Township, I was told they can't get this data for every township, the more populated townships, but they can do this data specific to Halfmoon. And so when you're looking at the chart there, you see that, and I'm going to break it down real quickly. There are 1,918 households in Halfmoon Township as of the last census. Households with patrons in Halfmoon number 583. So right now we stand at 64% of households in Halfmoon holding at least one library card. As for circulation, those households on average check out 9.8 items per month. And if you multiply that 9.8 items per month by 12 months, that amounts to 117.6 items per household per year that are borrowed by Halfmoon Township residents. And to go further, if you take the 583 households that hold cards and multiply that figure by the 117 items per household, you get 68,211 items that Halfmoon residents are checking out per year. And the cost of those items would not be insignificant if they had to be purchased instead of borrowed. The 68,211 items multiplied by $18.49, which is the average cost per item, amounts to $1.26 million, and actually a little over that. So the $1.26 million is the value of the items borrowed by Halfmoon Township residents each year. And that doesn't even go into the cost of an ebook or an audiobook. For those who know, it's Overdrive and Hoopla. And the average cost of an ebook is $43.67. The average cost of an audiobook is $67.17. So all these estimates are really taking in the low end of per item costs. And what Half Moon paid in 2020 to fund SCLO was $55,000. Well, $55,043. So I did a little of my own math, and for each dollar Halfmoon Township contributes, residents are receiving at least $22.90 in value. And then when we go into, and circulation is only the tip of the iceberg for what residents of Half Moon get, like such as the remote book drop at Brothers Pizza. That's used for the convenience of many township residents. Now, last year, it was 1,776 physical items returned to that book drop. But the number came down because of the pandemic, when a lot of the book drops were closed. And the year before, it was 4,400 or 4,431 items returned. And that number is probably more reflective of what it really is, instead of taking into account a year where they were closed for several months because of COVID-19. And like I said, circulation is really just the tip of the iceberg for what a public library such as SCLO offers. There are business resources, online resources for entertainment, internet access, which I think this year we learned is so valuable. And we became even more aware as a population that not everyone has access or even owns a computer. And it's a particular note when the library is closed. You can go and use the Wi-Fi in the parking lot and the sidewalk. And a lot of people can't afford that. And we take that very much for granted in our society. And SCLO allows for the use of meeting facilities, book returns, and story times. And real quick, I'll go over some future things that SCLO has on its agenda. There are virtual author events coming up. There's one going to be in May with Li Yan Pham. There's a partnership with Discovery Space. There's virtual farm visits with Birds of Prey and Shavers Creek. Ryan the Bug Man to talk about bugs, the Forgotten Friend Reptile Sanctuary. And it goes on to programs for adults with, partnering with Center County Reads. And SCLO is also launching a YouTube channel on Saturday, June 26th. So you all want to make sure you get in on that. And, we hear from patrons sometimes, and one says, "Thank you for keeping our family supplied with a constant stream of books. Bedtime wouldn't be the same otherwise, and we'd miss the special part." So that's what I have to say initially. And if there are any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer them. And if I can't, I will do my best to get you the information and get back to you with an answer as soon as possible.
Sharon, thank you very much for that update. We'll let some folks absorb. And Bob, you have a question?
Yeah, just real quick, going back to that YouTube channel thing. Could you elaborate on that a little bit? What exactly is happening?
I didn't hear the question exactly.
I'm sorry. Could you elaborate a little bit more on the end of your talk there about the YouTube channel?
Sure. It's going to be, I think, a series of short virtual tours, focused on the region and about the library itself and things the library has to offer. And there are installations and parks that are going in. Like if you see them, there are, benches and walks about, they follow a story along in a park and the new parks that are being built. Some of it was delayed because of COVID. But so that will be on Saturday, June 26th. Excellent. The first one.
Okay. Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions or comments? I always appreciate seeing the usage of the library, regardless if it's Halfmoon Township or not. It's nice to know that the local libraries are used heavily.
Yeah, I'll say that.
I'm a big proponent of public libraries. I said, I think at the very first meeting in January here at the township that, our country only, mandates or, provides education till you're 18. And after that, you have to either do it on your own, and public libraries provide enrichment, for adults who want to continue learning, even on a hobby level. They provide children with the incentive and, the feel-good feeling when you go into a library and they set the foundation for lifelong learning for our children. And provide resources for those who cannot afford to walk into Barnes and Noble and buy whatever latest book there is, or have access to a computer or a printer or the internet.
Well, I thank you, and I look forward to the next quarterly report to see what the still in pandemic, but hopefully a little bit different, provides for us.
I'm anxious to get back in and browse myself.
Yeah, and it's nice to hear that they're going to be actually opening again.
Yes.
Phased approach is good. All right, any
It's
other?
a phased approach, and it's very well thought out, and they will continually monitor the numbers, and there are contingency plans in place, and, it was told with the staff and the volunteers and patrons what their comfort level was as vaccinations were progressing. And this is everybody feels good about the phased reopening plan.
Good, thank you very much. And thank you for being our representative for Halfmoon Township as well.
No problem.
Okay. All good there. We will move along. At this time, we have an agenda item which is going to be a public hearing. So this is now the time and place for a public hearing on a proposed ordinance, which is 2021-01, an amendment to the Parkland dedication fee in lieu, which will provide future township parkland and recreational improvements and regulations for dedication and fees. This proposed ordinance was advertised in the Center Daily Times on Friday, April 2nd, 2021, in accordance with our legal advertising requirements of the Second Class Township Code, Section 1601. So then I will actually ask Corey to lead in the changes that we made to the ordinance. If you can do that for us, Corey, that would be great. Oh, and I will officially open the public hearing.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, just want to make sure. Sure, the current ordinance right now, it doesn't require a land of dedication or a fee in lieu until 5 lots or more are subdivided at one time. It also has an outdated method for calculating the fee in lieu, which is based on acreage, which actually comes out to about $2,500 an acre. And I think Amy and Denise could probably back me up and say that I don't think this ordinance has ever actually been used. So the new ordinance would trigger, any new subdivision would trigger a fee in lieu or a parkland dedication. The land dedication amount, which comes out to about 5% of an acre, stays the same from the current ordinance. And we went down to a flat $1,000 per lot fee. So that's much lower cost than the previous or the current ordinance is. And I'd be happy to try to answer any questions if anybody has any.
So without going through the entire ordinance, I'm just going to summarize the two major changes. The first being, instead of it triggering at 5 lots, we're triggering at any new subdivision. And it's either 5% of an acre or a flat $1,000 fee. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, just wanted to make sure I captured those. So those are the two changes to the ordinance. So now is the time, it was, what do I want to say? The ordinance was available to the public. Those were the two main changes. This is time for anybody in the public, if they have questions, want to know a little bit more about this, to have comment so that we can help answer this. And then at the end of the public hearing, we can go ahead and make a motion to approve this new ordinance. So now is the time for anyone that might have questions or comments.
And we did not receive any written comments prior to tonight's meeting.
Okay, so that means anybody who is currently attending or viewing, if you have any comments or questions, now is the time. Going once, going twice. Okay, well, that was relatively quick then. now I can't remember, do I close the meeting first? Yes, okay. I will close that public hearing and then we come back and we will make a motion to approve this ordinance.
Do we have a specific motion written? Or?
We do not.
It would be.
Do you want me to?
Oh yeah, I move that we approve the Parkland Dedication Ordinance number 2021-01.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Patty. Any discussion?
I really don't have any discussion. I feel like we hashed this out pretty good in the last meeting last month. So.
Okay. Question, discussion? Yeah, go ahead.
From my perspective, the problem I see is, you know, there's 5 members of this board, and only 2 of them own any land that would be affected by it. So it's like saying the majority can go out and tax the people that have stuff and take it. I mean, I'm not saying I'm subdividing because I'm not, but you know, I got a problem with this whole fee in lieu of stuff.
Okay.
If I have a farmer out there, he has 2 lots he's taking off for his kids or whatever, and we whack him $2,000, it's just stealing. That's different than if S&A Homes walks in here and takes out 30 lots or 50 lots, because they're professional developers. And that's why the 5 lot limit was set up to begin with. I don't know how the rest of the board feels about it, but you know, I could support it when it hits a certain limit, but I can't support it at 1 lot or 2 lots.
Well, I think the difficulty with that is, you know, that opens a giant loophole where, let's say we set it at 5, and then to get around it, guy pairs off 3 lots, waits a year, pairs off 3 lots, waits a year.
The big developers aren't going to do that.
This is true, but you're talking about
The
protecting the
farmers,
little
yeah.
guy. So, you know, I mean, I hear you. I don't want to go after taxing people that you know are pairing things off for their kids.
I know
but
it's
the vast
$1,000.
majority of the development that goes on in this town is people selling off lots to someone else to build a home. So,
You know, it's $1,000, it's maybe a drop in the bucket, but it's still taken from somebody. I mean, you know, my wife and I worked hard to buy the place we got. You know, nobody showed up and said, hey, here's 10 grand, you know, just to help put into your investment for your home. Have a nice day. Doesn't happen. There were no government checks coming in. Nobody walked by and said, let's help it. But, you know, heaven help you if you try to do anything. You know, Center Region Code will show up and help you wire your house up right. And, you know, township will be happy to stand out, you know, laying money for a park or whatever. I mean, somebody's always pulling money. I mean, you saw what the school district bill is. They pull in 10 times what we get. You know, everybody's always taking.
Well,
So,
I wish
I just don't want to
have.
add to it. I mean, I see there's a big difference between, you know, somebody taking off 1 or 2 lots and somebody taking out 30 lots, or we got a property on the other side of the township that, you know, there might be 1,000 lots in there. I don't know. But I see a difference between the two, and, you know, I understand in the element of fairness, I guess you say everybody has to pay, but, you know, I don't see a reason for it. I don't think the township's gonna go through any kind of development phase except in 2 locations. And if you do see any lots being taken off, it's gonna be some farmer somewhere splitting off a piece, and that's in land preservation, probably gonna be a large piece. You know, if they split the farm between 2 kids or something like that, I just don't see the purpose of taking 1,000 out for like less than 5 lots total. And even if you said it said, you know, 5 lots out of the current tax parcel, and that's it, I'd be okay with that. But I can't back it the way it is.
So you're saying you're suggesting to keep the 5 lot trigger.
I'm okay with the 5 lot trigger because that sort of kicks you over into a professional development. But at just 1 lot.
That I agree with the ordinance the way it is.
Did you say you don't? I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
What's that? I disagree with the 5 lot. I like the updated because, as they said before, the reason we're updating this is because it was never triggered, and most of the development that's occurring now is people are selling the lots, and with the prices they're getting, and the purpose of the money is to help with our parkland and help with open space, which also increases property value. So, you know, we already went through this. I think that it's good the way the new ordinance stands with the updates.
The reason why our old ordinance never got triggered is because nobody ever came in and did a development. The old ordinance was after Trotter Farms went in. That's the last big development we had. And prior to that, it was
Right.
Grayhampton, and out there where you live, Patty. I mean, those are all 16 lots, 15 lots. You know, if you're going to build a street, you're going to have a lot of lots to sell off to pay for the street. But if you're just hacking off one lot someplace, you know, I just don't see the point.
Was it 4 or 5 lots over across from Autumn Meadow? Does anyone know? Was that 4 or 5?
That's 4.
It's 4? Okay. I think you're right.
Yeah.
Well, they would have done more if they could have, but the soil didn't support the development.
Really? Okay.
Well, I mean, we have the folks who are, you know, they were just in here a few months ago, subdividing their lot on Smith Road, and they're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4 or 5 houses going around, and you know they're being sold. It's not a gift to a child or anything. So you know.
Well, Dave, one thing that I would like to say is I wish we would have done a little bit more discussion prior to putting this out for public hearing then.
Well, that's why we have a public hearing. And you know I voted no to forward the ordinance at the time we discussed it.
Sure. So I wish we maybe would have talked a little bit more about how we could have adjusted the ordinance to make it more acceptable.
I mean, you know, it's not a do or die for me, but,
Okay.
you know, it's just one of those things. Here we are with our hands out, taking money from the citizens again, and we do it a lot, and we just did it. Believe me, the grief I got over the tax increase is, you know, substantial. So, you know, I hate to just do this again. I mean, we've got a park we can't really afford to pay for. I'm just afraid we're going to end up with another park that we can't afford to pay for.
No.
Rather than getting money. I just
Exactly. This would help pay for it.
do what you got to do. So.
Okay. Any other questions, comments?
We have a motion and a second, correct?
We do have a motion and a second. Okay. All those in favor of passing the ordinance, say aye.
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 Opposed?
Nay.
Chuck,
Is Chuck there?
Chuck sent me a text that he can hear, but
Okay.
he can't
Respond.
respond. So,
Can he chat or something just so we get a vote?
yeah, Chuck, can you put that in the chat? He just texted me he votes no, but
Okay.
I'd like some sort of,
Okay. Yeah,
record.
we need that recognition.
can you put that in the chat, Chuck?
Okay, he'll do that for us. Okay, so the ordinance does pass. We will move along to the next item. And, I mean, also, as always, as things get implemented, feedback to the board is welcome on the process and how things are going. Next item is the update on the draft streetlight tax ordinance 2021-02, and there's a lovely little map, which I was happy to see to go along with it. So, I don't know how you want to introduce. Do you want to introduce this?
Sure, I'd be
Yeah,
happy
thank
to.
you, Denise.
So this is just what you have in front of you is the draft to the change that we have for the streetlight taxing district. So this came about, short story of this is a resident called in and questioned why he was being taxed for streetlights. And when we looked at the ordinance and we looked at what was in it, there had been at least 4 subdivisions and changes to property and lot lines, and that person had never been taken off that roll. So when we looked at this, it hadn't been updated since 1994, and the way it was worded, it listed all of the parcel numbers that were in that district, but those parcel numbers have obviously changed. So what we did is we updated it by removing those parcel numbers and stating that the district occurs from a GPS location, but we still have that parcel number, but the map will be a part of this as well, to a GPS location and parcel number. And then that map is kind of a visual there. So if there's any other subdivisions that occur, we can see that it's along this portion of the road. And those residents that are along 550 back in 1990 came to the board and had a petition and said that they wanted the creation of this streetlight taxing district. So this would just allow us to update that ordinance, and then what we'll do is we'll make those adjustments in the following year to the tax bills so that everybody's being taxed according to their street front footage.
Denise, how did you come up with the two beginning and ending points?
We asked, we contacted the CRPA and asked their GIS guy to put it in the center of the road from that parcel line. So when we originally had those parcels, where those lines were.
No, I mean, did you go out there at night and see if that's where the light stops from the street light, or how did you come up with the start and finish?
So it was originally parcel numbers, and what we asked the GIS mapper to do is to use that and just drop a pin with that GPS location in the center of that road line.
Okay, so it doesn't have anything to do with the actual light footprint then?
No, it's just so that if those lot lines change, you can see that that's the district.
Okay.
One of the things that I had asked about with this is how much does it cost for the streetlights?
So on a yearly basis, it's this past year it was about $1,030, so just over $1,000.
Because what I was going to suggest is that we being the township, pay for that streetlight and not the residents who live on that road. That was what I was going to suggest.
You want to change it so the municipality just sponsors it? Okay.
Yes.
Only problem with that is, what happens when the people along Cornfield want streetlights, and the people out on Mahalo want streetlights?
So I don't know if there's a difference, because that is sort of our village district and that's a main road. Others do benefit from those lights. I will say, you know what I'm saying? So I don't know if there's sort of a legal way that we can do that to kind of safeguard ourselves from, I want a street light on
When I lived there, I
Cornfield.
didn't like the streetlights because they lit up the house at night, and it's really hard to sleep.
I'm sure.
Without blackout curtains, when you got one of them things glaring at you. But other people, there were some older people lived across from me, and they were just scared to death of the dark. So, you know, they wanted it. So I don't know if the consensus is still strong for the streetlights in town or not. You know, I understand what you're saying, Danelle.
Yeah.
I agree, it'd be nice if the township just covered it under the general tax
Right.
thing, and you could eliminate this nonsense, but I'm afraid it's gonna be, where do we run the streetlights to next? And
I
it's-
see.
You have some options, and I will say, anybody can come and petition the board under second-class township code and ask for a streetlight district. Now, the board has the option of doing a streetlight tax, so that it is whatever the West Penn Power, what it costs for that year, it gets divided amongst the municipality. You can do it either as a flat tax per parcel that gets a benefit from that light, or you can do it as a road foot frontage item, which is how we have it. Or what you can do is you can absorb it just right into your general fund. I know from 30 years in a different location that what happens is, as growth occurs, like Dave said, these neighborhoods will start petitioning for lights.
Right.
And then usually when it gets to a point where it's fairly large, people will then just do a flat rate across the board to all the parcels. So it just becomes a
Parcels that are benefiting from the light.
right.
Okay, so,
One other thing I gotta add to this. I see on the district map, it includes parcels like, used to be the Bar Farm, Siegel Farm, I don't know who has the other piece down there, but I mean, it goes way back. And I think that might be a problem for us long-term. If somebody runs a road back there, puts a house back there, I mean, obviously, the Bar Farm only has like 50 feet that comes down to 550. I think that district probably ought to just encompass the area basically where the streetlight strikes, like 50 feet off the road.
I think
on
it's the
either side.
frontage.
It's the frontage off 550.
I know,
So
but you have a big green,
yeah, because that's the
That's
entire parcel.
right.
So they have foot frontage. If he were to subdivide the back and access was through some other means.
I guess I'm just asking for clarity to make sure that that doesn't happen.
Yeah, it goes by the frontage
Along the route. of
linear
550.
feet along
Yes.
the
Yeah,
route.
not the size
Yeah.
of the parcel, or
So-
if you have another.
An example I can give you is if you look at the top of the map, where that pin drop is, the parcels right below that pin drop were one at one point, and they subdivided, and so that got split between those two properties.
That's a grand.
Well, it didn't, which is one of the
Oh, that's
updates
one
that
of
we,
the
yeah,
problems,
we'll
okay.
be making. So, and it's based off of the percentage of the overall bill. So if you've only got a small little snippet, you're only paying a very, very small amount. If you have a large amount of foot frontage along 550, you're paying a larger portion of the overall bill.
Okay.
Well, I'd like to see two things happen. I'm okay with this. But I'd like to have a poll or a questionnaire or something of the people that live there to see if they want to keep the streetlights or get rid of them. You know, if the popular consensus is we like the streetlights, we want to keep them, that's fine. They're the ones that pay the taxes, have a nice day.
I don't think we can get rid of them, like pull them out. Is that what you
Sure.
mean?
Why wouldn't we be able to?
We believe we have an agreement
You
with
know,
West.
dark skies, all that good stuff.
Yeah, well, the thing is too, though, that this is a state road running through Stormstown, the
Yeah,
village.
but the state
and
isn't paying for it. They didn't
I
want to.
understand the state's not paying for it, but pedestrians could be paying for it with their lives if the dark roads are dark.
Well, we used to have sidewalks in Stormstown, but somebody paved over them, which is now 550.
I would love to have sidewalks throughout the
Well,
township,
it's
but we don't have the money.
It's a nice idea to at least find out, is there a possibility to remove them? What if the residents said, we don't want to pay for this anymore?
Or we don't
They
like it.
petitioned us to put them in, I don't know if they could petition us
I
to
mean, I
remove
can think
them.
of one property in particular that's all lit up, and since I know the people, I'm not gonna name a name, but, you know, I'd rather it wasn't. And, you know, here we are, we're doing the same thing, we got all these lights glaring down in Stormstown all night, 24/7. You know, after 10 o'clock, you can just turn them off, go to bed. As far as I'm concerned, it's just a waste of electricity, but it may be important to some people, it may be important to all the people, I don't know, but without at least asking some people, I have no idea what their opinion is, and I hate to just, they say, I'm okay with the ordinance, I'm okay with the concept, but I just think we need to know if people still want them or they don't want them. I know why they went in originally, I'm not gonna get into all that, but it wouldn't have made a difference in the situation.
Jeff, are you still here? Do you know offhand if they can just be removed? Is it similar to, you know, putting something up for the electorate? How, if you don't know, that's okay too. I don't mean to put you on the spot.
I don't know for sure, but since they petitioned it and it was granted on the basis of a petition, I would think there would have to be a public hearing before they could be eliminated. But ultimately, it would be the board's decision.
Denise, I have a question.
Go ahead.
The people are aware that they're paying this tax for the light, right? It's called out on their bill. Is that true?
I don't know if they're aware, but there is a line on the tax bill that does say streetlights.
Okay, there is a line on the tax bill. Have we had anybody complain about that?
Just the one gentleman that triggered the fact that we needed to do this update.
And that was just because we were in error, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I didn't complain about it, I just paid it, like everybody
Most
else. The
people
bill
will,
shows up,
yeah.
you write the check, you pay it.
So
Right, but if they haven't, if the people that the lights are there for have not said that they don't want to pay that anymore, then I'm not sure. It seems like there's not an issue to me.
I would assume that, but without asking, so I'm in favor of maybe every year or something, or with the tax bill, something, maybe with next year's tax bill, we could do something that says, hey, you're one of the residents who has this, make them aware of this. Many people might not be aware that only you are paying this thing, not everybody. So, I do like getting some feedback. Yeah, I do like getting some feedback, because if it's on my tax bill, I might not know that not everybody is paying for that thing.
We have an option.
Yeah.
So I can look into whether or not they can be removed. And what we can do is we have budgeted for 2 mailings I think it's 1 mailing for all of the township residents. We can do a mailing to the people in this district, letting them know that this is a draft that we will have a public hearing on, and if they'd like, we can do that. We would need to advertise the public hearing, but we can also send a letter out to the people in this district, letting them know.
Denise, I don't want to do a public hearing. I just want to do walk around, send a little flyer out, whatever. Just get the general consensus. If they want it, I'm fine with it. They're paying for it. But if they don't want it, then why are we giving it to them if they don't really want it? And we don't know.
If there's a majority who don't want it, you can follow the petition item again and organize and do the way they implemented it, then it would have to be repealed. I don't want us to jump too far down the road like Dave's saying. Let's just see what
the general
they're
consensus
interested in.
is, so we know whether it's an item or it's not an item. If it's not an item, then who cares? But if it is an item, then we would hold a hearing and make a decision based on what those people want to do.
I need clarification on something. What was the incident that caused these streetlights to go in? Was this the incident of the kid getting run down in the road? Okay,
And that was
so
in broad
right now,
daylight.
I don't think we should be even entertaining the thought behind removing lights that were put in place as a safety measure after a child lost it.
It was in broad daylight, the person wasn't speeding, it was just one of them freak things that happens.
Okay, so anyway, we are not proposing getting rid of the lights. We are asking if that is a possibility, if that is what residents
If the
want.
people that live there want to do it.
So we are not proposing that, right? Correct?
That's correct.
So all we're saying
Correct.
here, what's that, Patty? Oh.
I said correct.
Oh, okay. So I think what we have here, a couple different things. We have this ordinance that was updated, that needed to be updated because we haven't looked at it in a long time. We needed to make sure it was accurate and reflective of what we want to assess the tax correctly for all of the parcels. So let's take care of that, because I think some of the discussion, Dave, you're having about possibly polling, is there something we should put in place at least to maybe review or make folks aware every year? Some folks move in and out of there.
They do.
So you get new people in there that may not be aware. Just raising awareness, make sure that people understand what they're doing. And if they're happy with what they have, great. If they're not, we just want to make sure that there's an opportunity to tell us, and we know what that process could be if they don't want it anymore. Is that a summary? Kinda?
Yep.
So I don't think that finding all this out is a priority for the staff. Is that okay for me to say?
No,
It's not a priority.
I'm just saying, sometime,
Yes.
while we're going through this process, I mean, we need to update the ordinance if we're gonna keep them, but if we're not gonna keep the lights, then let's just
Right.
let it go. But
And so I think for at least this, to get this taken care of from the previous year and up to date, then we can figure out where to put this on the list going forward for discussion, or if we want to ask residents for their input. Does that sound okay?
you're on target.
Okay. So as far as this draft ordinance, is everyone okay with what is here?
Yes.
Yes.
Any other questions or concerns? So can we approve this?
I'm asking if we want to advertise a hearing
For
for
public
it.
hearing?
Yes.
Okay, and so I wasn't sure that we had to do that. Since we do need to do that in order to complete it, that is also a good time to ask residents for their feedback.
Well, I'd
So-
like to make the motion on this.
Okay, go ahead.
I make the motion that we contact the people that would be affected by this ordinance, and you can do an informal poll and find out if there's any will to get rid of it, or everybody likes it the way it is. And here's my if. If the majority of the people want to keep it, then I vote to advertise the ordinance for adoption.
Is there a second? If there is no second, then we need a different motion.
Well, somebody else make a motion.
Yep, does anyone have a different motion?
I'm just reluctant to spend money on something if it's going nowhere.
Yeah, I guess
I can second, can't I, as the chair?
Sure.
I'm gonna go ahead and second, because I like the approach of just doing an informal poll prior to spending money on a public hearing. So I second. So what discussion do we have about that motion?
I don't have a problem with going to, or polling, or going to, having a hearing, or even what was suggested earlier about the township just absorbing the cost of the lights.
Okay.
I do understand the open the can of worms
Yeah.
idea, though, with the problem with that. What we say the general ballpark number was for the lights, $1,000 a year?
$1,000.
Divided by, you know, I know everybody pays separate amounts on the linear footage, but divided by 45 lots, they're paying $22 a piece. So it seems like an awful lot of effort to, I don't know, you're right though, it does need to be
We're gonna spend
visited.
$1,000 at adopting this ordinance.
Yeah.
Oh.
So the motion is to do an informal poll, however we do that, if it's a mailing to those residents in those parcels, prior to, and once we get feedback on that, then determine if we're gonna do a public hearing on this or not.
As far as I'm concerned, you know, if Denise calls 15 houses and they all say yeah, or even if 7 of them say yeah, then I'm okay with going forward with this thing. I just would like to know what the feeling of the community is
Yeah.
before I advertise this thing. I should say the community that pays for the
Right.
for it.
And because it's, I mean, it's a relatively small number of people, it shouldn't be very difficult to get some kind of consensus on that.
So your motion was basically to just gather information.
I just want
Yeah.
some feedback.
I can support that.
It was to gather the information from the residents to see if they'd like to keep the lights. So remove the lights or keep as is. And if the majority wanted to keep it, the motion was to advertise the public hearing.
I still have trouble with even offering the option to remove the lights. I think it's just a tremendously bad idea to remove those lights. We already have traffic issues and speeding issues. I mean, Mr. Cervello was here chiming in on that. And I
But
think
the lights don't make people go
I
slower.
understand that, but the lights might help someone who's speeding or otherwise driving the speed limit, noticed something in the road that they wouldn't see without the
Well, we
those
also
lights.
have oscillating lights outside of town telling people that they're coming up on the village.
Yeah, but we also have drivers who
Which
stare
we
at their
pay
phone
for.
while they drive.
And we're not saying that people will want to remove them. We just want to make sure folks are aware that they are paying for these lights.
Yep.
And so, but anyway, and more discussion
If
about
it's
the
just
motion.
information, I'm fine.
Any more discussion or questions about the motion? Patty or Chuck? Oh, is he trying to? Okay, we're gonna go ahead and vote. All those in favor of the motion to do an informal poll, and depending on that result, determine if we're gonna do a public hearing or not? Or actually, we're gonna do a public hearing regardless, aren't we?
As long as the
No.
majority.
Say it
The
again.
motion- The motion is if the majority of people want to keep it. Now, I don't even know if we can remove them,
Correct, we need to find that out too.
but if we can, and that was it, the majority want to keep it, the motion is to advertise the public hearing.
That's right, okay. So informally poll and advertise the public hearing.
Right.
Yeah, and Denise, you wouldn't actually have to physically remove them. I'm sure they could just be turned off.
I don't know if we have some sort of agreement. I don't know what
We'll have to
what we
gather
have.
that information. We'll have to gather that
The lights are
information.
turned off doesn't mean maybe we don't keep the one at the intersection or something. I mean, you know, that's to be covered later. You know, this board can certainly talk about that, so.
Okay. So, all those in favor say aye.
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 All right. Oh, I do have a question. I'm sorry. I should have asked this before.
Go ahead.
So how are we going to are we phrasing it that just to know that they're aware that they're paying for these lights, or are we actually going to ask them if they want them or not?
Motion was to ask them if they wanted the lights. Wanted to keep the lights.
Yeah, Patty, I assume I'm gonna write a
Okay.
letter that, if we can remove them, I assume there'll be a letter that says, did you know that you're paying this? And kind of give them a little history, and then say, we'd like you to let us know if you're interested in these options, whatever they may be, one,
Or
if
confirm
removal.
that you want to retain these lights.
Um,
Something like that. Okay.
Yeah, keep it more positive because I'm kind of in Bob's camp. I'm not so sure that they even should be removed. But
I
yeah.
suspect that most of the people are gonna wanna keep the lights.
I do too.
But I think it's good that we just find out what the mood is. The mood, it's not 1996 anymore. You know, we're 25 years into the future and
Yep, I'm okay with that. And Chuck has a,
Chuck text I, but I don't know if he can put it in the chat. And Jeff, I don't know the rules on that with, if
His
he
official
can't be
vote?
heard, yeah, that may not be acceptable.
okay. I think we also had majority, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
Can I get the
wasn't
vote
it second
again?
but let's ask the solicitor.
For what?
It should be recorded through the chat mechanism to be on the public roll.
But we have the majority for the other votes, so on this one, we can just record it as he was unable to be heard.
Mr. Stover, it's true that a supervisor could call into the meeting and vote, right, on the telephone?
Under the pandemic rules, yes.
Well, I thought
It
that
is.
applied even before that. If you had a supervisor who was not in town, they could call in and talk or vote.
It did. You just
Or
had
am
to
I
be
wrong
heard
about
and-
that?
Yeah, so.
Nobody was
okay.
doing it.
I
hear
don't,
and be heard.
Oh,
not to my knowledge.
Interesting.
I know it's happened before.
Okay,
All right.
well, unfortunately, we'll try and get him to record it in the chat, but we did have a majority aye in
Yep.
favor of that motion. So, Denise, if you have any questions or want some help on how to phrase that for the residents, but I think you got it based on what you already described to us.
Yeah, originally I thought we would do the June 24th, but what we'll do is we'll wait to get some responses back and put a thing, and then we can go forward at the next meeting. I can come back with an update.
Lovely, lovely. And kind of like Dave said too, if you want, just make a few phone calls if we have, I don't even know if we have
It's
numbers.
informal.
Yeah, yep, okay.
Just get an idea.
Lovely. All right, let's move along to, we have an annual adjustment that needs to be made to the CPI, which I'll have to ask you, I can't remember what that stands for the Open Space Program Preservation Leases. It's an adjustment that needs to be made every year based on a CPI Consumer Price Index.
Yes.
Go ahead, Denise.
So the short update to this is annually in the open space preservation lease, we do an adjustment based off of the CPIU, which is the Consumer Price Index, for the Northeast urban consumers. And it's calculated as a previous 12-month period. So it's from April to March. In 2021, that average is 1.13%. So the price that was paid in 2020 per acre was $35.90. When you make that adjustment for the year, for this year for the lease payments, it'll be $36.31 per acre. So just so we have the math there, so we can always kind of have that. That is highlighted in blue. There are the numbers for that CPI adjustment, the math, and then the new amount. So we'll need the board to approve that rate so we can make the lease payments.
So that math at the bottom is how you figure out
It's the previous 12
the
months.
CPI. Yeah. I feel personally attacked by that equation.
I love it.
You're supposed to what with that?
But the reason we did that is because Amy and I spent some time looking at the math calculations and trying to backtrack how we figured it out last
Yeah.
year. And then once we did, we were like, let's just put this on here so next year we can look
We
at this
know.
memo and go,
There,
ah,
exactly.
there's the math calculation.
So basically, this is more of an administrative type thing to update the annual
What the
CPI.
ordinance requires.
Yes.
Correct.
Okay. So I moved to approve the CPI rate increase of 1.13% for the 2021 Open Space Preservation Program lease payments for a rate of $36.31 per acre.
Beautiful. Is there a second? I'll second. Sure. Any questions about that? All those in favor say aye.
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 Was that Chuck?
Was that Chuck?
Or was that Patty?
I think it's.
Does it work?
Oh, Chuck! Good to hear ya.
So can we ask Chuck his vote on the last 2 votes?
I guess for the record, we should get it.
And I
Chuck.
can't, so I think you voted, Chuck, did you vote aye on the streetlight ordinance motion?
Correct. I voted aye on that.
Thank you. And then I think you voted nay on the parkland dedication ordinance. Is that correct?
Correct. Voted
Thank-
nay on that one.
Okay, awesome. We got you official now. Okay, so I think we had all ayes for approval of the CPI adjustment. Wonderful. We will move along. We are tabling the developer agreement discussion.
Jeff, I'll get with you on that.
Fabulous. Okay, now we have a couple resolutions to talk about. We have resolution 2021-11, which is designating May as Bike Month. Do you want me to read it? I will go ahead and read it. This is a resolution of the Township of Half Moon, Center County, Pennsylvania, designating May 2021 as Bike Month, May 17 through May 23rd as Bike to Work Week, and May 21st as Bike to Work Day, and Center Region Spring Bike Anywhere Friday. So, whereas Halfmoon Township supports the efforts of Center Bike to promote bicycle commuting in the Center Region, and whereas Halfmoon Township recognizes the benefits of bicycle and pedestrian commuting in providing exercise, decreasing air pollution, conserving fuel, decreasing traffic congestion, decreasing noise pollution, and improving the health of its citizens, and whereas Halfmoon Township maintains and continues to develop facilities to promote bicycling and walking as means of transportation, and whereas the Center Region is recognized as a bicycle-friendly community at the silver level from the League of American Bicyclists for its efforts to engage the community in bicycle riding through collaboration with Center Region municipalities, Penn State, and Center Bike. Now, therefore, the Board of Supervisors of Half Moon hereby designate May 2021 as Bike Month, May 17 through the 23rd as Bike to Work Week, and May 21st as Bike to Work Day and Center Region Spring Bike Anywhere Friday. Whew.
One part left. This resolution duly adopted this 22nd day of April 21st.
Thank you.
Or of April 2021 by the Half Moon Township Board of Supervisors, Sunny County,
you.
Pennsylvania.
Who is
You ran out of
Center
gas, huh?
Who's what?
Bike? Who is Center Bike?
I'm actually not as familiar with Center Bike.
Never heard of them.
Yeah,
They're the same outfit that comes around with this every year, aren't they?
I think so. Yeah.
They ride bikes out here or what?
I don't know.
Enough
Maybe.
people do.
I used to
Yeah,
ride
enough
bikes
people
out
ride
here.
on 550.
I probably have more miles than anybody.
Yeah, probably. So, can I have a motion to approve this resolution?
I'll move that we approve the resolution.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Is there any discussion?
Although I'm in favor of riding bikes, I think it's outside the purview of the township of the second class, so that's my opinion.
Okay. Any other discussion?
I fully encourage as much bike riding as possible from the youth, the adults, everyone. But I think it needs to be stated that bike safety should be stressed as well during a month like this, because There are a lot of folks that like to ride bikes on busy roads, busy windy roads, and they put themselves in harm's way.
Without lights.
Yeah, without lights, without reflectors.
Scare the
So
daylights out of
I
cars,
feel
right.
like, along with promoting bikes or bicycling, we have to stress the safety aspect of it as well.
Yes. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed?
Nay.
Chuck, if you're there, did
Nay.
you nay or yay?
Yeah, it was a nay. I'm
Okay.
not big on bicycles on the highway.
Okay, it is a little different for us in Halfmoon Township. The resolution did pass, so we will move along to the next resolution that we have on the agenda, which is a resolution that came to us. Can you tell us from where again, Denise?
Yes, so Sharon, I'm gonna butcher your name so badly. So Sharon contacted me.
Van-
Can you say it again? Rovansek.
Rovet,
Yes. So Sharon.
Rovet.
We got you.
So Sharon contacted me about the library update, and we agreed to do that. And she had asked whether or not she should bring this up during the public comment section, and had provided a draft. And I said we can add it right to the agenda. So I'm going to let her present this.
All right, I was not planning to read it if you all have it.
That's okay.
If you want, okay. So I'm not gonna read it, but I'm gonna make a statement.
Okay.
All right, I'm appearing to ask you to pass this resolution 2021-12, which designates May 2021 as Asian Pacific Heritage Month in Halfmoon Township. I would like to tell you why it's pertinent, why we need this resolution should be passed at tonight's meeting. The month of May was chosen to commemorate the immigration of the first Japanese to the United States on May 7th, 1843, and to mark the anniversary of the completion of the Transcontinental Railroad on May 10th, 1869. The majority of the workers who laid the tracks were Chinese immigrants. And they say everyone has a story. Mine is very brief. My grandfather immigrated from Japan to the territory of Hawaii in 1922 and was so proud that he changed his first name from Koramasa to Harding, who was president at the time. He was a farmer, like many here. His two sons both served in the military, my father as an army medic in Korea. My father went on to work and retire as a social worker who aided the elderly. They represent the hard work and dedication Asians and Pacific Islanders have made and currently make to our country, our state, and to our Halfmoon Township. And present here, or they were here, but they had other obligations, are other Asian and Pacific Islanders and their friends and neighbors who live in Halfmoon Township. I was also asked to relate to you by Kim Rue, who had to leave for another commitment, that this resolution is for a better community moving forward. Therefore, I am asking for the passage of this resolution tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. So can we have a motion to get the discussion on the table?
I move that we resolve that the Township of Half Moon, Center County, Pennsylvania, designates May 2021 as Asian Pacific American Heritage Month.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Well, I would also like to make clear, like I would like it to be for every month moving forward. So it doesn't have to, you know what I mean? Every May
Every May, yes.
moving forward, not just May 2021.
Can we do that?
I don't know. Because I think this has to be.
I'll come back.
thing.
I'll come back next year if I have to and get
Okay.
it like it's possible
Yeah,
to
I'm
do.
sorry. We're
But-
not sure if municipal code lets us do that on a continuing basis.
All right, well, maybe you'll see me next year.
I hope we do.
Okay. So we did have. Go ahead. Who is that, Patty?
Is May also, is there something similar at the county, state, or national level? Is
Yeah.
there recognition?
Yes, at the national level, Jimmy Carter passed it with with the support of Congress, the Senate, and the House of Representatives. And then it was only 2 weeks. And then under President Bush, George H.W. Bush, he extended it for the whole month. And Pennsylvania also has it at the state level, and Governor Wolf has asked, made it a priority to extend it to all the counties and the townships to have, local governments acknowledge and pass, May this. So at least on the federal level, it's every May.
Okay, so it is on May. Okay, great. Thank you, Sharon, for that background. I appreciate that.
So I think we had a second. Patty, did you second? Is that correct?
I did.
Okay, so now we have discussion. I do not have any conflict about the content of the resolutions that come before us. So it's the idea of a resolution that I am conflicted with. And so I've said this for a couple previous resolutions from last year, I think, that I prefer to have residents come with potentially some action that goes along with a resolution.
If you want, I could speak to that when you're done.
Okay, sure. I do, like I said, this is difficult for me because I do get very conflicted because of course I believe in the content of the resolutions that come before me. Every resolution that comes before me, I believe in the content. But a township stating this, unless there's, for myself, I'm talking, this is my personal opinion, unless there is something that kind of goes along with it, for instance, we will have some kind of community type gathering, or at the next meeting in May, have a group of folks come and talk about the impacts and things like that. That has, for me, a little bit more meaning and some meat behind the thought and intent of a resolution, rather than us just kind of putting a stamp on something and then putting it in a pile somewhere and not having some more energy around it. So that's my personal opinion. And before you talk, Sharon, we'll let others discuss.
Virginia has her hand raised.
Oh, Virginia, go ahead.
Hi there. Thank you. I think I agree with you, Danelle, that having action behind a resolution is very important. And there is a group in town or in the township that is working to organize some sort of action, but that's further down the road, perhaps in the summer, because the group is pretty new. The fact that the governor has said that May is the fact that the governor is trying to get all of the townships to pass a resolution supporting Asian Pacific American heritage, especially in light of the recent violence against Asian and Pacific Americans. That's why they're trying to get a resolution passed now. This is to work towards an action in the future.
Thank you for that. Bob, go ahead.
I'd like to add, as many of you know, my wife does a lot of work with anti-bias training. And so we talk about matters of race, even though we are not a marginalized group. We'll never understand, but we see what is happening. And I think something you have to take away from a resolution like this, where I do agree, I like resolutions with action. But something like this, it might not seem like it has action, but to the folks of that community that this is addressing, they see just this resolution as action. They see it as their municipality saying to them, we see you and we support you. And that can make a huge difference just in the attitude from folks within the community about, like as Virginia said, about the the spike in violence against the folks from the AIPI community because of the inappropriate wording surrounding the coronavirus. So I would support this ordinance just on the simple fact that, like I said, it's an acknowledgement that those folks who belong to this demographic are being recognized by people in power, and therefore they can feel that they can now step forward a little more comfortably. So.
Thank you. I
hope I got my point
appreciate that
across.
because, like I said, I do get conflicted from my sense of, how do I want to say? I'm always a very action-oriented person,
Yes.
but I need that reinforcement for myself to know that just the act of saying this is very meaningful.
Yes.
So, thank you.
All I
Discussion?
got to say is thank you for your grandparents' service. You know, my family's been in this country for 400 years. And nobody said, welcome here. I'm sure the Indians were thrilled. The American Indians, the Native Americans, were thrilled that my relatives showed up and probably built the docks that other people's relatives came in behind. But, you know, I don't want to sit here and yeah, the Chinese people built the railroads, Japanese people built the railroads, Irish built the railroads, Germans built the railroads. What I'm saying is, are we going to have German American week next week? Are we going to have Irish American week next week? Are we going to have, you know, Argentine week the following week? Here again, it's outside the purview of a second-class township. I'm glad you're here. You know, it's a great place, but I don't want to vote to recognize anything that's not in a second-class township. That's where I stop.
Okay.
I'm not the governor of Pennsylvania. I'm not the state legislature with powers to go above and beyond. And whether we like it or not, it does nothing. It's a feel-good thing.
I would like to respond to that if I could.
Please.
So, first, with what Bob was saying, I think it was Bob, it's hard to see with the resolution up on the screen. But when, I think, in just my opinion, discussing these issues, when we have a resolution like this come up, and it says, you know, it doesn't go far enough, you know, I agree. It would be great if it could have action, but I cannot tell you how much a resolution like this makes me, as an Asian, feel seen by the community that I live in and love. And with what's been going on lately, it's hard. It's hard to see that and that rhetoric and to feel like you're not seen and that you don't have a voice. And as for action, this resolution itself is action. If it puts in the thought in one person's head, even if it's fleeting, that, hey, next month this is going on. Hey, next month, you know, like, boy, Sharon got up here and spoke about her father serving in Korea, or, you know, the struggle, you know, and like you said, Dave, I think it's you, that like, are we going to celebrate everything? I'm all for celebrating everything.
Absolutely.
Recognizing one culture, one race, one nationality doesn't put down anybody else's. It does not do anything of the sort. And I want to hear stories. You know, I had to pare down the story to keep it in 1 minute and 36 seconds because I had a feeling I was going to be at the end of the meeting tonight. I want to hear everybody else's stories. And believe me, the last thing I would ever want to do is say my story or my race as a Japanese descendant is more important than yours, who's been here 400 years. But, it's been hard. My father came back from the war in Korea in his army uniform. They didn't want him. They said, we're not serving you in this restaurant. And it speaks to, and then, you get that. And then you get that again with the latest rhetoric that's going on. And I cannot speak any more passionately about the issues than that. I think this resolution has action. I think the resolution as it stands has action. Thinking about it, letting, like Kim Rue had to leave, somebody else who had to leave because they had another commitment, letting us know that we're seen by the community that we live in and raised our children in. That's action. I can't explain it anything more than that. And I feel personally like it shouldn't be, it's great. Like, I think that, yeah, let's have a culture day in Halfmoon Township. When the virus is over and we can gather and have booze and activities and crafts and food and beverage from all the cultures. Let's celebrate that. But, I don't think that we can personally make it like a requirement of like the group or whatever to be seen that have that part. That's my opinion. But that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Sharon. Go ahead.
Virginia and Sharon, I don't know how deep you want to get into this, if this is okay. But we actually, last year, if you're familiar, we had passed a resolution and regarding the fact that we would form a committee and start finding out how we're not being inclusive and report back to the board. And Virginia and a couple of other families have started something along those lines. And this kind of would help support that. And we might be able to use them as the resource to make that committee happen and start seeing the ways in which we can be more inclusive within our community.
That would be wonderful. And we need, and so I appreciate Sharon you bringing this, because we need the community to take part and to engage. And I can't wait until we can have some kind of community event, especially here, we're back in the building, where we can celebrate these things. And that's what I'm kind of looking forward to. So let's go ahead and move forward with vote, or if there's any other discussion, and we can move this forward in whichever way we need to move it forward. So is there any other discussion about the resolution? I'm looking at this board and Chuck or Patty. Okay, seeing none, we'll go ahead and take a vote then to pass Resolution 21-12. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
Okay. The motion passes, the resolution passes, and I look forward to hearing some future things, or seeing what we can do in the future for not just this particular resolution, but other community-related issues, events. How to build community is really what I'm looking for the township, is to continue to build community. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Sharon.
Thank you.
Before you folks go, Sharon and Virginia, I'll be in touch with you. I'm sure my wife and I would love to have a conversation with you about this committee you've formed, and we would like to participate, please.
Thank you. We would look forward to that.
Yes.
Excellent.
I've known of the committee, but it's been hard to break loose some time, but I think it's time to break that loose. So.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Final resolution and major item of the evening is Resolution 21-13, which is related to the Spring Creek Watershed presentation that we had earlier today, which is a resolution of the Township of Halfmoon, Center County, Pennsylvania, supporting the Spring Creek Watershed Commission Phase 2 report and a Phase 3 effort to pursue development of a one water plan. So it basically summarizes a little bit of what was already in the presentation. I'm not going to read the resolution.
I move that we resolve for the Township of Halfmoon, Center County, Pennsylvania, supporting the Spring Creek Watershed Commission Phase 2 report and a Phase 3 effort to pursue development of a one water plan.
Is there a second? I'll go ahead. Oh, thank you, Patty. And is there any discussion? So basically, again, just a summary is this summarizes that we are in support of all of those groups that, why am I blanking on his name? Paul mentioned to help work towards a one water plan. No financial commitment. It is
Exactly.
really a supportive commitment in whatever way that we want to. So, any discussion?
Here again, I don't think it means beans from us, but, you know, I like the work they're doing. I think it's a good project,
I do too.
but I don't know that this resolution means anything.
I think what it does is for them, it can help them with their external funding
Oh,
sources that they're
that
looking
could be.
for. Because if they have official resolutions from places, then that gives them more credibility. So I think that's what it does for them.
Especially if they can manage to get unanimous
Yes.
from all the participating
Yes.
municipalities.
Yep. Okay. Any other discussion?
Paul has his hand up.
Who does? Paul, go ahead. Hi, Paul.
Hi, thanks everybody. Yeah, we actually need a majority of the municipalities to approve for moving forward. Since you are an official member municipality, that's why we're asking for this resolution of support. So we need 7 of the 12 to approve in order to move forward.
Excellent.
So, thank you.
Thanks for the confirmation, Paul. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Chuck, I heard an aye. Nay?
I'll throw an eye in here.
You're going to throw an aye in?
I'm gonna throw an eye in.
All right. Okay. So that's a majority. Thanks, Dave.
Unanimous.
Okay. So that resolution passes. There you go, Paul. One of the 7 you need.
Thank you all very, very much. I look forward to keeping you posted as we move forward.
Thanks for hanging in there with us, too.
Thank you. Have
All
a nice
right.
evening.
Moving along. Department reports. I think
Nope, we have one more resolution.
What?
No,
No, we don't.
That should be it.
That was it.
it's all three.
3 resolutions.
I have a commitment that I'm
No,
gonna have
that
to
was
leave
pretty
for
good.
very shortly.
Okay.
Is there any possibility we could break and do the executive session?
Yeah, we could do that. We can adjourn, do that, and if folks want to stay for the department reports and supervisor reports, they can. If they don't want to stay, they can watch it on CNET.
So then we won't be adjourning, we'll be.
Pausing.
We'll be pausing and coming back.
I have to say,
a second here.
Thank you. Okay, we are back from a small adjournment, or a short adjournment, sorry, that we had to an executive session, which we discussed a litigation issue. There were no decisions made, it was just informational and discussion purposes for us. We are returned to our regular meeting. The only things left on the agenda are department reports and supervisor reports, which we are foregoing going over details of those right now because of the late hour. The department reports are linked in our agenda if you have interest in reading those. The supervisor reports for all of the committees are actually available on the crcog.com, crcog.net website. So you can go and look at all of the different committee minutes from the previous meetings. And other than that, anything else for the good and welfare?
I have nothing.
All right. Seeing no other business, meeting adjourned.